In our headlines on this Friday, September 5th, here in Seoul, President Jinping attends a forum in Incheon City to foster a productive environment for innovations in South Korea's biotechnology sector via partnership between the government and businesses. North Korea's Kim Jong-un and his Chinese host Xi Jinping sit down for separate bilateral talks Thursday evening on the sidelines of China's Victory Day parade to reaffirm their ties. Meanwhile, over in Portugal, 2 South Korean nationals are among the 16 victims who lost their lives in a crash of a popular funicular railway car in the capital city, Lisbon. We start here on the national front, where President Jinping has turned the spotlight onto the country's biotechnology sector as he seeks new growth engines. I have our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin standing by on the line with the latest. Yoo-jin, do start us off.
Right. Good afternoon, Sunny. The panel discussion titled K-Bio Accelerating Innovation wrapped up about an hour and a half ago. This event in Incheon brought together industry leaders, researchers, lawmakers, and government officials to discuss ways to elevate biotechnology as South Korea's next flagship sector. Now, with the Yi administration having named biotechnology as one of its 5 next-generation growth engines, President Yi stressed the need to create an environment where researchers and companies can work more freely, creatively, and also fairly. Take a listen.
이 산업의 특성상 연구 개발이 매우 중요한 것 같고, 연구 개발에 있어서 정부가 그 장애가 되지 않도록 그 인증 절차들을 좀 신속하게 해주는 게 중요할 것 같습니다. 아마 규제 완화나 규제 개혁도 여러분들이 아마 주로 말씀하시게 될 것 같은데, 그런 점에 대해서도 열린 자세로 저희가 접근하도록 하겠습니다.
So what are the key takeaways from today's panel session, Yoo-jin?
So following the president's speech, the health minister laid out a policy roadmap focusing on cutting red tape, strengthening technology, talent, and capital, and drawing in new investment. Participants also pitched ideas directly to the president, including calls for more funding for companies entering costly clinical trials, faster drug approval reviews, and ensuring long-term research stability. President Yi concluded the event by urging relevant ministries to engage directly with the stakeholders more often.
대한민국 경제 산업이 발전해야 국민들의 일자리도 또 국민의 삶의 질도 개선할 여지가 있고, 또 새로운 기회들이 많이 생겨야 우리 사회가 가지고 있는 이 불평등 그리고 대립과 갈등도 완화할 수 있는 기회가 더 생길 것 같습니다.
I want to mention that Friday's event could be seen as the government's effort to elevate South Korea to the world's top 5 biotech powerhouses. Back to you, Sunny.
All right, Yoo-jin, thank you for that coverage. And President Jinping will host the leaders of 2 major political parties, Chung Chung-nae of the Democratic Party and newly elected Chang Dong-hyuk of the People Power Party for lunch next Monday. Monday's meeting will be the first between the president and the new head of the PPP, who was elected last week. Following the lunch, the 2 will sit down for a separate one-on-one to discuss a wide range of issues without a specific agenda. The presidential office hopes the talks will open a new chapter of dialogue between the government and the opposition party. Chu Byung-gi, the nominee to head the Fair Trade Commission, has highlighted the importance of an upgrade in the market system. Speaking at his confirmation hearing earlier on this Friday, Chu pledged support for innovative companies and stern punishment for those that abuse their power for unfair gain. He claimed the move is necessary for South Korea to compete with advanced economies. Chu also emphasized the need to protect small and medium-sized businesses from technology theft and to ensure fair market conditions for online platforms. In Beijing, North Korea's Kim Jong-un and his Chinese host Xi Jinping sat down for separate bilateral talks Thursday evening on the sidelines of China's Victory Day parade to reaffirm their ties. Our correspondent Kim Bo-kyung has details.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Chinese President Xi Jinping's meeting signaled the restoration of close ties that had grown distant due to the recent North Korea-Russia rapprochement. The two met at the Great Hall of the People on Thursday, marking the first such meeting since 2019, with Kim visiting China in January of that year, while Xi visited Pyongyang in June. During the meeting, the two leaders shared the pleasure of seeing each other yet again and agreed to work together to safeguard their common interests as part of what was described as a community of shared destiny.
In the face of a turbulent international landscape, China stands ready to strengthen strategic communication, enhance exchanges and cooperation, and deepen exchanges of experience in governance with the DPRK, so as to effectively advance our respective socialist cause and jointly promote regional peace, stability, development, and prosperity.
The past 6 years have seen earth-shaking changes and development in China, which impressed me greatly. What touched me even more is the unwavering and profound friendship between our two peoples. Despite the ever-changing world, this friendship will never change.
While touting the development Beijing achieved, Kim stressed the regime's readiness to deepen economic and trade cooperation to achieve greater results. When it comes to the tension on the Korean peninsula, Kim did mention how he appreciated China's, quote, fair stance regarding the issues, to which Xi responded that China will continue to strengthen coordination with the North to safeguard peace and stability in the region. However, the joint statement released by China after the meeting did not include any mention of the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Kim arrived at Beijing Station at 9:50 p.m., departing on his special train 50 minutes later. He is expected to arrive in Pyongyang on Friday afternoon if he heads straight back. His fifth visit to China was his longest one on record, lasting 4 days and 5 nights. His stay in Beijing was also his longest at around 54 hours. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-shik is back here in Seoul from Beijing, having attended China's Victory Day parade on behalf of the South Korean government. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
After attending China's Victory Day ceremony as South Korea's representative, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-shik returned home on Friday, saying there had been progress in strengthening Korea-China cooperation and even some unexpected gains for peace on the Korean peninsula.
It seems there was some progress in improving Korea-China cooperation, which was our original goal, and I think this could open up a new opportunity. I believe there was some unexpected progress for peace on the Korean peninsula.
Regarding his encounter with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Wednesday, Speaker Woo said that just being able to meet and shake hands was already an achievement, adding that many had thought the chances of meeting Kim before his trip to Beijing were very low. This echoes what he said at a press conference in China the day before.
It was hard to have a full discussion, which I find a bit regrettable. But given the current state of inter-Korean relations, I think even a brief meeting was still meaningful.
Woo left for Beijing on Tuesday evening to attend the military parade, and the next day he was seen shaking hands with the North Korean leader. According to the National Assembly Speaker's office, Woo told Russian President Vladimir Putin, who also attended the event, that he hopes the South and North will usher in an era of peace and prosperity and work toward building peace on the Korean peninsula. He also mentioned that South Korea is hosting next year's UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting and asked Putin to convey to Kim his hope to visit North Korea's Mount Kumgang, recently named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, analysts here in South Korea believe this week's show of solidarity among the leaders of China, North Korea and Russia in Beijing looks to complicate efforts to ensure nuclear disarmament on the Korean Peninsula. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
A phase of bloc politics could complicate the equation for peace on the Korean Peninsula. That's according to analysts in Seoul after Kim Jong-un joined Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin at China's Victory Day celebration in Beijing. On Wednesday, the leaders of North Korea, China and Russia put on a united front throughout China's major military parade, hardening the fault lines against South Korea's strengthened trilateral cooperation with the US and Japan.
China and Russia have openly declared that they intend to advance a so-called multipolar international order, which will revolve around the global south, BRICS, and Eurasian states. Their gathering reflected that push. Second, it signaled a countermessage to the U.S. and the West, considering the recent South Korea-U.S. summit and their solidarity with Japan, reinforcing bloc confrontation in the region.
For Kim Jong-un, it also underscored his push for recognition of North Korea as a nuclear power. While South Korea and the United States say they remain committed to reviving dialogue with Pyongyang, both allies maintain their push for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. But for now, Pyongyang has little incentive to talk, as it benefits from Russia's war in Ukraine with troop deployments and arms supplies exchanged for economic and diplomatic returns. At the same time, the potential end of the Ukraine war means Kim must keep his options open, shoring up ties with China and pressing for deeper economic cooperation.
From Kim's perspective, it would be the North Korean-style division of labor, the economy from China, security from Russia, reaping benefits from both. Still, if talks to end the Ukraine war do take place and move forward, U.S.-North Korea dialogue could open up. In that dialogue, North Korea would seek to leverage China's backing to pressure the U.S. This reflects a calculated diplomatic strategy.
For South Korea and the U.S., China adds another layer of complexity.
China's decision to invite Kim underscores its role as a key player in Korean Peninsula and regional affairs, displaying Beijing's firm influence on the North. The message is that Seoul and Washington must maintain amicable ties with China if they want to improve relations with the North.
It's a leverage Xi Jinping clearly flaunted as he elevated Kim Jong-un's treatment with special protocol in Tiananmen Square. The diplomatic calendar further raises the stakes. South Korea will host the APEC leaders meeting this October and has hoped to see the leaders of the US, China and even North Korea show up. Attending the Victory Day parade instead of President Lee Jae-myung, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik has invited Xi Jinping to APEC once again. It remains unclear whether the Chinese leader will accept.
China initially had high hopes at the start of the Lee administration, but despite stressing pragmatic, national interest-based diplomacy, Lee prioritized a summit with Japan and reaffirmed its alliance with Washington. That likely displeased Beijing.
Looking forward, Seoul says it will continue to strengthen its alliance with the United States while pursuing a stronger relationship with China in a way that mutually benefits their citizens, while calling on Beijing to play a more constructive role in Korea Peninsula affairs. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
U.S. authorities raided a Hyundai motor plant in Georgia on Thursday. Now, this is according to ATF Atlanta's X post. Some 450 people have been detained, including about 30 South Korean nationals. The raid has also halted construction work at the site for a battery factory that Hyundai is partnering with LG Energy Solution. The raided site is one of Georgia's largest manufacturing sites, employing about 1,200 people, and where Hyundai Motor Group makes EVs. In Portugal, 2 South Korean nationals are among the 16 victims who lost their lives in a crash of a popular funicular railway car in the capital city of Lisbon. Our Cha Yun-kyung has the latest.
In the tragic crash of the historic Gloria funicular, 16 people were killed and more than 20 others injured. On Wednesday, around 6:15 p.m. local time, Lisbon's 140-year-old funicular train, which is popular with tourists, derailed and crashed into a building. Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and Prime Minister Luis Montenegro visited the site of the funicular accident on Thursday evening for a mass in honor of the 16 victims of the crash. Prime Minister Montenegro called the crash, quote-unquote, one of the biggest human tragedies in the country's recent history, and President Rebelo de Sousa told the journalists that it was a time to mourn the deceased and to console their family members.
Today is a national day of mourning. It's mourning for Lisbon, but also for Portugal. In this hour of mourning, we are waiting for a time when, first and foremost, we must mourn the dead, respect the dead. Believers pray for the dead. Non-believers think of the dead.
The yellow funicular that carried many tourists up and down a steep hillside in Lisbon was left overturned on the cobblestone street. Of the 16 victims, the coroner has so far identified the bodies of 5 Portuguese, 2 South Koreans, and 1 Swiss national.
5 Portuguese citizens have been fully identified through scientific methods. 2 South Korean citizens. We have had close collaboration with the South Korean embassy from the outset, and 1 identified Swiss victim identified through Interpol.
According to Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Friday, the 2 Koreans are a man and a woman, and there was another injured Korean woman in the accident who is currently undergoing treatment in the intensive care unit of a local hospital after surgery. Meanwhile, President Lee Jae-myung on Friday extended condolences to the families of the victims of the deadly crash. He posted a message on Facebook saying, quote-unquote, "I offer my deepest condolences to the bereaved families and the people of Portugal, who must be in profound sorrow and shock, and I wish a swift recovery for the injured." He said the Korean embassy in Portugal formed a task force immediately after the accident, and the ambassador also checked the situation at the site of the accident. He added that the government will convey condolences to the Portuguese Prime Minister and request special support for Korean nationals. 차윤경, 아리랑 뉴스.
In other news, OpenAI, the developer of ChatGPT, is reportedly exploring the prospects of producing its own AI chips. This is according to the Financial Times, citing sources familiar with the plan that may go into practice next year. In fact, OpenAI reportedly aims to co-design its chips with semiconductor giant Broadcom to meet soaring internal demand and to reduce reliance on NVIDIA. Broadcom CEO Hock Tan, for his part, has confirmed a $10 billion custom AI chip order, but did not name OpenAI. The government's budget for the film industry has been raised substantially. According to the Culture Ministry, the budget for next year has been set at 149.8 billion won, slightly over $100 million, which is an 80% jump from this year. The Korean film industry has been in the doldrums since the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ministry has pledged to better support Korean movie makers who are a pivotal part of the K-content wave. Audio descriptions that accompany screen productions can enhance the cinematic experience for the visually impaired, and this is also the case with Netflix sensation K-pop Demon Hunters. Our An Sung-jin files this report.
각과 곱고 차림의 진우가 굳은 얼굴로 서 있다. 호랑이가 진우의 팔에 얼굴을 비빈다.
This is a scene from the renowned Netflix film K-pop Demon Hunters. The Korean Community Media Foundation provided a screening of this popular movie with attached audio descriptions.
One of our major goals is to create no discrimination between disabled and non-disabled audiences in media. So we work on screening accessible movies.
For most of us, watching a movie means sitting back and soaking in the visuals. But we might be taking this for granted. Veteran Seo Soo-yeon redefines how stories are told and experienced. She started the Korea Content Accessibility Research Center, and for 23 years, she's been working on expressing nonverbal elements of content into spoken aspects.
To be honest, this was all very unfamiliar to me because no one had done it before. I had never thought that people with visual impairments couldn't watch TV. But I realized there are movements, actions, and nuances that they miss entirely.
Her work involves adding descriptions of subtle expressions and action sequences in between the spoken lines, creating a fuller cinematic experience for the visually impaired.
시장은 빈 그릇에서 가게 사장에게로 옮겨간다. 사장의 꼬챙이에 얼음을 끼우고 있다.
For his Hall, effective audio descriptions aren't about matching visuals word for word, but rather producing context, clarity, and flow. But what she says what's often more important, yet neglected, is the language used that creates further division.
There shouldn't be hard lines drawn between people with and without disabilities, because anyone can become visually impaired. So we often frame accessibility as something only for people with disabilities, but it really starts with understanding others.
The push for accessible content is gaining ground, but there's still a long way to go. With efforts from people like Seo, moments that can be lost in darkness can enhance a powerful scene for everyone. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
An ancient Korean ritual that was forbidden during Japanese colonial rule has been restored, with its sounds and sights taking center stage here in capital Seoul. Our Park Hyo-bin was there.
Sounds and moves from a century ago are once again coming to life. This is the sajikjereak, the music and dance that accompanied the royal ritual, the sajikdeje dedicated to gods of land and grain, praying for abundant harvest and the well-being of the people from the Joseon dynasty to the Korean Empire. This week, the National Gov't Center staged the sajikjereak to honor the ritual's cultural value, which was recognized as a national heritage.
The sajikjere was a powerful symbol of statehood. The music performed during the rite embodied the highest artistic and philosophical ideals of the time, carefully managed by the state itself.
This performance recreated the version from the Korean Empire era. It begins with the emperor's arrival at the sajik altar and follows the ritual until his departure. Unlike modern reinterpretations, the focus here was on faithfully restoring the music and dances of the past rather than reinventing them. But sajikjereak also carries a painful history. During the Japanese occupation period, the ritual was abolished and its music and dances were lost. To mark the 1988 Seoul Olympics, the sajikdeje was revived after an 80-year absence, and the National Gov't Center presented it as a stage performance for the first time last year.
Reviving the sajikjereak is not only about restoring music and dance. It's about reclaiming our cultural identity and national pride, bringing it back in its full form, as it was performed in the Korean Empire, holds deep historical meaning.
Despite the history and essence, the sajikjereak is still less recognized by the public. The National Gov't Center hopes to have the ritual eventually inscribed on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage List, just like the 종묘제reak.
We are working with the goal of having the sajikjereak officially recognized as a cultural treasure and eventually as a UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage.
And so, more than a century after being silenced, the voices of the sajikjereak rise again, reminding us that heritage, once lost, can be reborn to inspire a new generation. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
And it's looking to be an exciting weekend for art aficionados in the capital city, as two major fairs kicked off earlier this week to showcase the latest in the world of art. Our culture correspondent Park Gon-woo has a glimpse.
Wall after wall is filled with creativity. Creative artwork from a jumbo sculpture made of 500,000 Korean pennies to a three-dimensional piece that makes you feel as if it's alive is exhibited. To make this happen, the 24th edition of KIAF Seoul brought together more than 170 galleries, with a third of them from overseas. Newcomers also joined, reflecting growing interest in Seoul's art market.
Korea has a very interesting, a real openness to the rest of the world. Culturally, very excited to see how we could present our artists and our creation to the local Korean landscape, and in Seoul already discussing with other artist curators to actually see how we could potentially work together.
This art fair, showcasing thousands of pieces, goes beyond viewing artwork. It also serves as a marketplace and a platform for networking. At the same time, the organizers are making efforts to encourage developing artists. Since 2023, KIAF has been selecting 3 artists from 10 semifinalists, providing both funding and promotion. One of this year's semifinalists shared why his works drew global attention.
Because I use traditional Korean materials like mok and hanji, my monochrome work stood out among the more colorful pieces. With growing global interest in Korean culture, this sentiment seems to resonate.
Freeze Seoul, which is collaborating with KIAF for a 4th year, also has a bunch to appeal to. One section that draws eyes is Focus Asia, which showcases artwork by emerging Asian artists and galleries.
I'm expecting to see just a greater focus on Asian artists. I started collecting Korean art a while ago, and I've been to Seoul 6 times. This might seem like a good opportunity to see a lot of different galleries at once from all over.
Among the highlights was floating rubble, which creates the illusion of rubble suspended in midair. And works by renowned masters, including Park So-bo, also appeared, some recreated digitally for a fresh experience. Media art installations, including one with the concept of being caught on fire, also drew interest. With record crowds flocking in on opening day, the twin art fairs are expected to attract even more through the weekend, making Seoul's art scene livelier than ever. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Late summer heat is still raging across the country. The heatwave warnings, which were only issued in some southern areas and Jeju Island, have been extended to the Chungcheongdo provinces, the Seoul metropolitan area, and Gangwon-do province. The daytime temperature in Seoul rose to 33 degrees Celsius and in Uiseong to 34 degrees. Rain is forecast all over the country this weekend, especially in the western region where it will be strong and heavy. More than 100 millimeters of rain will fall in southern Gyeonggi-do, Chungcheongnam-do, and Jeollabuk-do provinces, and 80 millimeters in southern parts of Gangwon-do and Chungcheongbuk-do. Up to 80 millimeters is expected in Seoul. The morning will start at 25 degrees in Seoul and Busan, 23 degrees in Chuncheon and Daegu. Highs will move up to 30 degrees in Seoul, Daejeon, and Busan at 31 degrees. Frequent rain in southern parts of the country will continue until early next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.